Hi and welcome to ECCB Connects, a program produced by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank designed to share with you who we are, what we do, and how we serve you. Anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism, or AML-CFT. This may sound foreign to you. In simple terms, it means having policies and laws in place that seek to prevent monies gained through criminal activity from entering the financial system. What is the ECCB doing to prevent and combat these crimes and protect our financial system? Find out more after the break.
We have exciting news. ECCB Connects now has a WhatsApp channel. Follow us and stay in the loop with our latest videos, photos, and updates. It's simple. Just search for ECCB Connects in your WhatsApp Updates tab and get connected with all things ECCB. ECCB Connects, who we are, what we do, and how we serve you.
Thanks for staying connected. Officials from across the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, who are tasked with implementing the international standards on anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism, are now better equipped to execute their tasks, having attended a workshop aimed at improving transparency of beneficial ownership information. The ECCB, in collaboration with the International Monetary Fund, facilitated the workshop from the 21st to 25th October. What is beneficial ownership? Simply put, beneficial ownership is getting behind who it is that owns or controls legal persons, or who has ultimate effective control for a legal arrangement. Financial sector expert at the IMF, Louisa Maltrek, said the training seminar at the ECCB focused on some key revisions to the Financial Action Task Force's most recent update concerning the transparency of legal persons and arrangements.
What has changed really, or what has been happening over the last few years, is that there has been a general awareness and awakening in the media and with public society of how large the risk is that corporate entities can be misused to launder large-scale proceeds of crime. We think, for example, about the Panama Papers, the Pandora Papers, Paradise Papers. So all these revelations have really brought home the risk of misuse for this sector. At the same time, what we've also seen and heard from the participants is that holding accurate and quality beneficial ownership information has been one of the most challenging areas for many countries, and it has been also at the same time one of the weakest areas in their anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing regimes. So what we did and what we wanted to achieve this week was to look at all the specific revisions to the standards and how it impacts the ECCU member countries going forward. So, for example, we started to discuss with participants firstly some clarifications to the concept of beneficial ownership information and some deepened requirements that countries have to fulfill when it comes to the identification and the verification of beneficial owners. So what that means is that countries are really required to understand who is the natural person that stands behind a company and the ways and mechanisms of how that natural person controls the company and the jurisdiction.
The supervision of financial institutions, such as commercial banks, are critical to improving transparency of beneficial ownership. IMF's regional expert Ian Carrington explains.
Financial institutions have the overall objective of ensuring that the institutions for which they have oversight responsibility understand the anti-money laundering terrorist financing risk that they face, and they have the necessary measures in place to manage those risks. In the context of beneficial ownership, that really comes into play, I think, at two levels as far as a supervisor of financial institution is concerned. Initially, the supervisor is concerned to make sure that at the point of licensing an entity to become a financial institution or a supervised institution, all of them are not necessarily financial institutions, you want to make sure that the appropriate persons are in fact behind the entities that own those institutions. So as an entity approaches a central banker or any other authority for a license, it is important for the supervisor to look behind the corporate entity that is applying and make sure that the beneficial owner, the person that stands behind the entity, is someone that meets the standard. And in this context, specifically in terms of the integrity standards that are required to own and operate such an institution.
We speak with officials from across the ECCU who deal firsthand with issues of beneficial ownership in their respective organizations. They expressed sentiments that the training seminar was insightful and timely and would positively impact their work in the areas addressed going forward.
For me, this was one of the most insightful workshops I've attended. The workshop dealt specifically with recommendation 24 and 25 of the FATF recommendations, 40 recommendations. And it is the first time for me that I have participated in a workshop where I am living with a very, very great understanding, comprehensive understanding of the application of the recommendations, recommendation 24 and 25. I felt that the presenters were very, very knowledgeable on the subject matter, and the format of the training was very interactive. It gave participants an opportunity to provide and share their experiences, so persons could not only learn from the technical aspect in terms of what was being presented, but also from best practices that have been implemented in other jurisdictions and some of the challenges that some of those jurisdictions face.
I'm very grateful to the ECCB, the IMF, and the CDB for bringing this particular workshop to the region at this time in particular. And it's definitely has been useful, I think, and hearing from the different participants in the room on their practical challenges and best practices. I think it would be useful and beneficial to all of us, all of the ECCU territories going forward in preparing ourselves for the 5th round of evaluations.
This workshop, obviously, because we administer the company's registry in Montserrat, is very, very timely for my staff, for myself as the registrar, because it showcases the diverse views and cases and different countries' perspectives on this matter. Because in this world of fighting money laundering, we have to collaborate, and I think that having so many wonderful delegates from different countries, from the union, it provides such a great platform that we can learn, we can share ideas, best practices, and take back that to our own jurisdiction to ensure that we improve our systems.
It was received as being a timely workshop, and that is because we all understood recently that in 2022, the requirement of the Financial Action Task Force in relation to beneficial ownership information would have changed. St. Lucia being a country that has 2 registries, one dealing with what I will call the domestic sector, another one to deal with the international business companies, we believe that we need to ensure that we can harmonize the regime that we have within these 2 industries. And when you speak about transparency, that was something that when you read in the literature, you may not really understand what they mean by transparency. And according to the standard, they're speaking about a multi-pronged approach with regard to beneficial ownership information. And that would require countries, for example, to ensure that beneficial ownership are placed in a registry. And definitely discussion, for example, in the case of St. Lucia, would have to be held with policymakers. And I think this workshop is really helping us in understanding the key requirement as it relates to the benefits and also the way to go ahead with ensuring that we can remain transparent with regard to collecting beneficial ownership information.
I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the ECCB and the IMF team for hosting this timely workshop specifically relating to the updates to Recommendation 24 and Recommendation 25. As member countries, it is important for us to understand the importance of transparency relating to beneficial ownership in legal arrangements and legal persons. And I think as member countries, well, specifically in Antigua and Barbuda, as we prepare for our 5th round of mutual evaluations, it is important for us to not only understand as the FIU, but also the entities that we supervise to ensure that they too understand how important it is. And so basically, as we go back home, it is more on the scope of enforcing more training sessions with our reporting entities, ensuring that they comply with the requirements and the new updates. And once again, I just think that this is a great initiative and we are deeply thankful.
My key takeaways from the workshop are to learning to identify the beneficial owners for a company, as well as legal persons and arrangements. Also to learn about the new requirements for Recommendation 24 and 25 and the verification process, as well as the multi-prong, learning to understand better the multi-prong approach.
I felt that it was, should I say, a surprise to me in that it was beneficial ownership information is much more vast than we thought. I got that from also my colleagues. So I am very, very happy that I was able to be a part of this workshop. One of the things that stood out for me during this workshop is finding the beneficial owner when it is not clear and when there is no visible beneficial owner, and looking at the shareholders and the threshold to be able to determine who will be that person that you will use as beneficial owner in senior management also.
I think this seminar is an eye-opener for most of us, just to get us to wrap our minds around the work that needs to be done, or the ongoing work that needs to be done to ensure full compliance with the standard. I do plan to take away from this seminar as much information as possible to ensure that Anguilla can fine-tune its framework as well as streamline its efforts to ensure that it can fully comply with the recommendations.
And now for this week's financial tip.
Be flexible. Once you have set your goal for saving, realize that things can and will change. The secret is learning ways to be flexible. If you normally save $100 per month and something unexpected happens, you may only be able to save $50 that month. That is fine as long as you focus on getting back on track.
Here's where we end this episode of ECCB Connects. Thank you for watching. We hope that you found it to be quite informative. Do join us again next week when we'll be back with another program to share with you who we are, what we do, and how we serve you.